Once again, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are right now. I would like to welcome all of you to the very first Efma webinar in 2019 with a main focus on the impact and implementation of the artificial intelligence and machine learning in the banking products and financial services. My name is Barbara. I will be your today's webinar moderator. And before we start with the presentation, I would like to firstly welcome our amazing speakers for today. So first of all, we have Rudradev Mitra, who is our senior advisor for artificial intelligence at Efma. He will be covering a very interesting presentation today. So Rudradev, welcome to the session. And then,
Thank you.
And then I also have a pleasure to welcome Eva Božekova, who is an advisory services project leader from Efma. She will be today presenting some of the AI initiatives at Efma. So Eva, welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Before we start, let me just give you some kind of housekeeping information so you're all aware of how the agenda will look like and also how you can use the platform. We would like to keep the session very interactive. If you would like to discuss with us the AI trends, you would like to give us your point of view regarding the best practices, you are more than welcome to do that. Right now, your microphones are muted in order to avoid any communication noise. So if you want to speak, you firstly need to click on the hand icon that you can see on the toolbar, and then I will unmute your mic and you'll be able to speak and join the discussion. If you prefer to comment via chat or you have any issues with the microphone, you can certainly do so. So you see the chat section on the bottom part of the toolbar, and then we'll be also introducing your questions or your comments anytime throughout the session. The session is being recorded. So in case you would like to share the session with your colleagues or you would like to review on your own, you will for sure receive a follow-up email with the presentation slides and also with the video recording right after the session. If you have any comments or any troubles with the platform, please feel free to reach me out anytime. For now, I think that that's all from my side. And Eva, I will give a word right now to you.
Thank you. So once again, welcome everyone. I hope you will enjoy today's session. As you know, Efma has been quite successful in the recent past to create the largest retail banking community in the world. And this brings a lot of potential, but also a lot of responsibilities. And one of Efma's missions for 2019 and also in the recent year is to transform the industry and to help banks and insurances to transform, mainly digitally transform, because that is one of the most used expressions of last year, but as well AI, machine learning, robo-advisory, and so on. And that's why we have spoken internally and decided to create another community within Efma community that would be focusing on AI topic. And this is one of the first series of AI webinars, but not only webinars. We are talking about a full package of different initiatives, such as AI topics included within Efma councils. We are closely cooperating with one of the renowned French universities, École de Pont, with which we would like to create series of short 1, 2, or 3 day workshops and seminars. So if you are interested, not only in today's session, but also in other initiatives of Efma focused on AI topic, let us know. We will also create poll during the session where you can express your preferences. We will definitely contact you per email, but because we are creating an AI community, we would like to approach you differently. So you can choose between WhatsApp group or a dedicated LinkedIn AI community group on our Efma LinkedIn. We will tell you more information in due time. We will definitely update you. And now I will hand over to Rudradev, who will present today.
Thanks, Eva. Everyone can hear me, right? My voice is clear.
We can hear you, yes.
Cool. So thanks a lot for inviting me to give this webinar. And when I had to choose the topic, I thought that one of the key challenges in the banking sector is primarily over the last 1 year, I've traveled around the world and I spoke in various banks from Kuwait to Barcelona, Sweden, Vietnam, and I always was asked the question about end user adoption and how to build products to make user adopt. So I want to make today's focus on that topic. Before I can go into deeper, I thought of just briefly telling about me, because there are a lot of people who are in this space. So I just want to say that how I started being in this space of AI. I started working in AI way back in 2002, and I did work on various topics of AI. In fact, I was working on building a process automation for the insurance sector for AXA. In way back in 2005, 6, 7, and we were using something called ontological language, which is a form of an AI subfield. Then I went on to build a few startups. One of my startups was also in the insurance tech sector in Belgium, and I will briefly talk about that topic. And over the last 2 years, I've been involved quite a lot in the knowledge sharing space. I've written a book. I write a lot of articles for Efma, but also other places. I speak a lot. And I've spoken in various banks, including in Kuwait, even in BNP Paribas in Poland, and that's what basically is what interests me in this space.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot see the slides. I think
you cannot see the slides?
Yeah, I think that there's probably a problem with the mode of the presentation. Now it's perfect. Maybe you can keep it as it is right now.
Okay. I don't know why is that so.
No worries, we can continue like that. No, yeah.
Okay.
Right now it's working.
Cool.
Thank you.
So sorry for that. I didn't see that you cannot see. So that's the slide that I briefly spoke about me. So for today, I thought we can break down my this into 3 sections. The first section is to look at where can AI create the most value in the sector, in the banking sector, let's say. And I take 2 use cases that I think I know few banks are exploring those use cases, but that is a huge opportunity for various banks to utilize AI in those couple of use cases. But of course, there are many more. And finally, I want to end the webinar with an aspect of how to overcome some of the challenges that I keep on hearing from banks, and then have an open discussion from you guys. So the first part is where can AI add the most value? Most of you perhaps have seen this hype cycle, and this is one of the most common questions that I've heard is AI all hype? Is there really a value for creating? And when you look at, so I pointed out the deep neural network, which basically is a part of, let's say, a subfield of AI. And it says that it is in the peak of inflated expectation. That's by Gartner. Now, whether that actually means, what does it mean? Does it mean that banks should stop looking at AI, or is it something that they should explore and see where they could use it? And the way I always answer that question is by telling the story of Segway. So many of you may know that Segway started in 2002, and when it was launched, or when people started to get to know about it, a lot of people, including Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, said it's the next big thing. It's actually been bigger than the internet, and in 10 years, everything will change and everyone will have a Segway. Almost 15 years or 20 years down the line, well, very few Segways are actually out there. And this is very important because I always argue that technology can be only lead to a successful product if you are creating value. And so the key aspect is that is the technology which is being used is actually creating any value, and value for the end users. Otherwise, the technology has no value. So it's the same holds for AI too. Now, AI has the opportunity to either go and build products which is creating value for the end users, and then it would have a huge opportunity and potential. But on the other hand side, we could go on and build products that has almost no value and could remain in this fancy and hyped part of the technological era. And I think a lot of AI is still in this hype and an area which is quite fancy to hear. For example, autonomous cars is one of those use cases, I would say. But there is also a huge opportunity of actually using AI in solving real problems. So, but what is AI? I mean, again, this is when I was looking into a lot of attendees, I thought that many of you are non-technical. So I thought, okay, maybe I can briefly talk about what AI is. And when we look at AI as a graph, we see AI is an overall technology that has been, people have been exploring this over 60, 70 years now already. And there are a lot of different algorithms. And I have worked on many of those rule-based express system, search, evolutionary algorithms. But the most focus that has happened over the last few years is around machine learning. Within machine learning, primarily in supervised and unsupervised learning. And why this has happened is because what basically machine learning is learning patterns in data. And in the last few years, or even the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of data has been generated or is already there. And that created a huge interest in this space that, okay, there is a lot of data. Now, can we utilize the data to find perhaps some patterns? And why is patterns important? If machines can identify those patterns, where is that relevance is? Because there are patterns in everything. So if we can utilize machines to identify a pattern of what we buy, where we buy, what makes us engage, or even at level of why IT systems fail, and that could help us to even, let's say, predict. And that if we could predict few things, we can even try to prevent things. So that's where the whole power of let's say, primarily machine learning is over the next few years. I'm not talking what could happen in 5 to 10 years and where AI can be or what kind of algorithms could be built. But that's what current applications of, let's say, AI or primarily machine learning is. I bring this slide because often when I talk to people, they often limit AI by thinking, okay, perhaps AI is about identifying images like cats and dogs or building robots or let's say doomsday. And I say that none of them is actually the real use case or the power of AI. The real power of AI is to build systems that fix a lot of broken processes. And there are a lot of broken processes in the banking sector. Now, why are those processes broken? I will give a couple of use cases, but the primary reason that a lot of processes are broken, not only in banking, but around every sector, is because these processes were made within the limitations of our mind. So we have biases, we have fast thinking, we cannot deal with large amount of data, and we analyze quite slow. So a lot of processes, like let's say simple cases like giving loans to people, are defined within our limitations. So the processes that have been built are not utilizing the data out there. And that's where machines can help a lot. So what machines can do is help us to analyze large and distributed amount of data, do some perhaps predictions, and help humans make better decisions. And that's a focus that I would like to think through. That's where we, as a society, or in general as a sector, we go into that direction of building something called augmented intelligence. Now, arguing this point that if we are looking into problems where machines can help humans make better decisions, what are the right problems to solve for? And this is a criteria that I have. I say that, okay, the three most important criteria that we should look at is first, look at problems or processes that are inefficient or there are high error. Because already humans have a very high error. Because once we are dealing with processes that are inefficient and high error, we don't expect the machines to be 99% accurate. We expect the machines, even if the machine is 50% accurate or 70% accurate, that is perhaps improvement of what is already being out there. And the second criteria that we should look at problems that would better fit for machine learning is whether the data is distributed and quantifiable. What I mean that you are trying to analyze data from multiple sources, and the data could be represented or already represented in a format that machines understand. And the third part is that there is a large amounts of data that you could collect or generated. Typically because machines, even the current algorithms require decent amount of data to train the model. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean millions of data points. In fact, I have worked on building machine models where we have used, let's say, 1,000 to couple of thousand images, because there are new techniques that have come up, like transfer learning, which helps us to use a previously trained model and apply on a new segment or a new type of data. And that's why we are not even talking about millions of data, but it could be even few thousands of data points that which could already be used to apply in certain problems and get some interesting results. But these are still, we need certain amount of data to train. So these are the three conditions that I would say that are required when we're looking at a problem and see whether we should use machine learning in general to solve them. And when I look, and this is a diagram that I came across in one of those reports, I don't remember where it was about what are those focus areas in the banking sector. If you look at these kind of, what are those places where banks could improve? And I listed these are like, there are like 7 to 8 places where banks can improve a lot to their existing processes. Either they're inefficient or they're kind of broken. And in the corresponding column, I added machine learning. And I think that these are almost all of those cases where machines can actually help to improve the areas that, let's say, banks have a focus. And I will pick 2 of those from this segment in today's talk. Let's say what are those 2 use cases? The first use case is where I have seen that a lot of banks have already data. And what the banks can do is add intelligence on top of that. Let's say this example is from this focus area, which is where you want to enhance the proactiveness and anticipation of client needs, which is quite one of the top requirement of banks. And here machines can actually help a lot. So what is that basically means? But this is a quote that I just wanted to argue that how important this is. That is from someone called Ben Chenswell. I never met him, but he said that I think the most important thing is to have empathy and really listen to your customers. And that's where the machines can actually understand and listen to the customers quite well. Then let's say what currently the process is. And one of the ways to do that is, let's say, if we can build a machine that can anticipate the client's needs. And that could say that who needs what. If a bank would know that, okay, this kind of people, or this is the guy who would, in a month or in a week, would require something, that would really greatly improve the customer experience. Because that would help people say, oh, the banks care for me in that way. So, and without going into deeper, since I know that the audience is not technical, what basically is required is this kind of machine algorithms called supervised learning, where if you train them with past input and output, then the machine, and it would learn those patterns. As I said before, the machine learning is all about identifying patterns. And there is patterns in even our requirement. So what we need, what we would require, there is a pattern when we need something. So if you could train a machine with past behavior of input or output, we might be able to then have a say where, given today's time, what the person would require in future. And what kind of data could machine be trained? So we can train a machine, let's say, like what is the age, the address, the job profile, the income, expenditure, where they are spending. So there are a lot of data that perhaps banks already have, which may not be, I think you can anonymize to a certain extent this data and train a model for a group of people and you're trying to predict that what is that person is trying to in future what he's doing, or from the past what he had done in the past. So in the past we are training the machine with certain kinds of input data, which is this segment of the persona of the person, and then what his activity has been as over time, what all things he have done. once you could train the model with that kind of activities, perhaps financial activities, then you would know that, okay, this person is going to do this in a month. And that you can then create certain kind of way to incentivize the person or show value to the person. So it's, although prediction itself is not necessarily valuable for the person, it could be seen as infringing into the person's kind of private life. But if you could create a value on top of that, show that he sees that the bank is creating value for me rather than just infringing into my personal space. So that's one of the use cases where you could potentially create a lot of value for potentially customers. So one of the value I would say that how you do create a value on top of by predicting is if you know that someone his monthly income is XYZ and he's spending money on something else, and you might say, okay, I can give the person X amount of loan given at this point of time. So that's a value that the person would appreciate, that, oh, okay, I get an offer from a bank at the point when I perhaps need the most. So that's the kind of the value that banks could think about creating. I'm just skip this slides because that's what I've already discussed it. The second use case is where I'm talking about is where you perhaps don't have the data. You might need to collect the data. But it would also greatly influence the process, improve the process, as well as create a lot of value. And this is a story of and one of the focus area for that is the refocus on client risk or return profile. That how could you focus on what is the risk of a client? This is a use case that I will take it from my startup. It was in Belgium, and what we saw that young people are paying quite high premiums because they are young, and that's why they don't have a lot of driving past record. So they end up paying high car insurance premiums, and which is to some extent is, I think, a broken process, and also not completely fair because just because someone is young doesn't mean that he or she is a bad driver. What we did was create, let's say, an app. And this, you could solve this problem in various ways, but I'm just giving you the way we solved it, that we basically created an app which was tracking how people are driving. Based on that, we were able to collect a lot of data. And the way we what we did is and that data that we have, when we know that who is driving, how someone is, a group of drivers are driving in which way, we could use something like unsupervised learning where we don't have past behavior data, but we do know that, okay, some people are driving in certain ways, and some are, let's say, driving in a risky way, or some people are driving in not risky or not that risky way. And when we have these groups, we could create. I will skip this slide because I'll talk about it later on. What we saw that we can incentivize the people who are driving, say, in a more risky way by goals and challenges and rewards, and end up making them better driver. And that has, again, a huge value. And you can further on, we didn't end up, because we couldn't end up reducing the insurance premiums, but that's that banks could or insurance companies can potentially do in future. But just the fact of incentivizing people to drive better or focusing on people who might not be driving well, we see that there is an improvement in how they are driving. Again, that's a huge value for drivers as well as for the society, and as well as for the banks or insurance companies. So these are the two simple use cases that I try to show, is that where in general machine learning can be used primarily because there is the patterns. Once you identify those patterns, use those patterns to either improve some of the processes that you have. Now, the question that I often get is, okay, that's good, but how do we? The biggest challenge is how do we get, let's say, the data? Because a lot of data that you have already, but in some cases you might want to go and get the data. Or how do we even make people use what we are building? And that's a problem that I've heard that in the past, banks or insurance companies have said, okay, we have built something, but people do not want to use us because they don't completely trust us. And there are these some of my what I have learned by using or building such products is, first of all, it's not enough to just build and kind of tell to people, but it has to be connect that with somehow with intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. So in the case of the app, what we did is we created goals and challenges, and we had rewards. And the rewards could be as simple as like get a coffee or something. But also intrinsic motivation was make roads safer. So when you could connect these two motivations, people are actually quite willing to share the data because they could see that it has a value for them as well as to the society. The second thing that I say that if you want people to adopt and get the data, then you have to make the value transparent and understandable. This is a use case that is from IoT. Way back, I worked in a energy sector, and when we studied the smart metering system, and we saw that it is not enough for people to just have a smart meter, but it is very important for them to see through a dashboard that what value they are getting. And this is very, very important that they clearly understand that what is the value, and it is transparent to them that, okay, this is what I'm getting out of it. It's not enough to just say, okay, you will get something somewhere. Although this is seems like a common sense, but you'll be surprised how many products and companies fail at these simple things, as showing the value transparent and make it understandable for people, which is not sophisticated way of people, because people often don't understand too sophisticated languages. The third thing that we did also was, and I would highly recommend, is to educate your users. Now, educating doesn't only mean that, okay, bombard them with an email. What we did is we just sent letters, physical letters. And even in today's world where people have so much of information in their emails, in the smartphones, we were surprised at how much people appreciate getting a physical letter sometimes. Or even a call followed, and then we followed up with a call saying, hey, did you receive a letter? And then I know these are all seems like kind of hard to scale, but I think it's very important that when you are launching a product, especially where you are trying to get user data or trying to incentivize people to use it, to launch it in a small group of people who could become your evangelists. So one of the ways is to find those people whom you're sending a letter, educating them, having a call, and they will then end up adopting and talking about what they are doing, and then it will spread. So this is something also we saw that it works very well. And another way is, I also say that is to trying to create a community, that when you are launching these products, people end up, if you're connecting with intrinsic and extrinsic motivations, if you're connecting with the value creation, and if you're educating them well, they will form a community and they will start helping you get more data. And this is a case that I'm working on, not from the banking sector, but this is about people tagging their rooftops. And what we saw that when we created those 3 steps, people were starting to not only tag their own roofs, and that's the data that we wanted, but people were also tagging other people's roof, and they were making other people also say, hey, come and tag, making other people say, you can go and tag your rooftops. And these are the different ways that you could help people to move and start adopting machine learning and giving the data. And that would actually end up also creating a lot of trust, because people unfortunately do not trust a lot, have a lot of trust in these kind of machine learning products. So to conclude, that all that I said is, first, I say find the right problems where there are high human error, because if you are focusing on those problems, there is highly likelihood that people will see the value, and highly likelihood that machines will be able to add a lot of value. The second is focus on creating value for end users and not return of investment. And this is also quite important, because often I've seen that banks and financial institutions have a quite direct way of saying, okay, what is the ROI for building such products? Unfortunately, at least to my mind, it's very hard to often see the direct ROI when you are building disruptive products. Often, disruptive products create value, which would create an ROI, but may not be in a short term, or maybe not be in a few months, or may not be directly in terms of pure financial. It could be trust. It could be in other ways that you could it could be happy customers. So if you are just looking at, okay, what is the ROI for me? It may not be the best way to ask that question. I think what is the way to ask is, am I able to create value for my customers or users? The third point which I say is that try to build processes or use machines if you are looking for end user adoption where humans and machines are collaborating and combining the intelligence, and that helps to build a trust. And this is something I would really like stress upon, that look at processes where humans, there are parts which are machines take over, but the decision making is still with humans. And the final comment is that, and I heard this over and over again. I was in Switzerland a week ago to speak in some conferences, and this is not only in banking sector, but most companies, they said that the problems are low tech. It's machine learning, or unfortunately have this huge high tech kind of people perception, but most AI applications or machine learning applications is actually low tech. There is a lot of low hanging fruits and a lot of low technology that where you can apply them to improve some of the processes. And they don't require a lot of investment. They don't require a big team. So I say, okay, find few problems, start small and start lean, and try to fix those problems, show the value created, and then move to the next level. So that's basically I want to talk about. I do often write. So these are the few of the articles that I have written for Efma. These are all in the Efma website, and basically. Some of the thoughts that I share today are also in these articles. So if you want to further read them, you can always go and have a look at those articles. To end, I wanted to ask this kind of a poll that what you guys think is the biggest hurdle that you face in your organizations with respect to AI and machine learning adoption. And these are those few options that I have given. That's what I have heard from people. But I would be happy to hear what your thoughts are, or what you guys think about it.
Yeah, Rudolf, thank you very much for the intro of the poll. So now I hope that everyone can see the poll on your screen. You can basically select more than one answer, really according to your choice. So right now the poll is open. So please, guys, if you can just select something that is according to your experience or your thoughts. We can wait maybe, let's say, 1 minute to collect all the answers. I see that we already have a couple of votes. So let's wait a few more seconds. And in the meantime, it was basically the presentation from Ruda was already finalized. So if you have any questions or any comments, or you would like to ask anything specific concerning also your bank and how you are working with AI, please feel free to do so. Okay, let's wait 10 more seconds and then we'll close the question. Okay, so Rudradep, I will share the results right now with you. So we may see that most of you pick lack of use cases, lack of adequate people who can build these products. Some of you also are struggling with lack of money, and then we have lack of motivation, lack of data. Rudradep, so any thoughts here? Anything surprising for you regarding the results?
So I think I would love to, first of all, hear from people who have given the lack of use cases, that whether what I said now to this webinar, did it help them, or they still think that they still face problems in finding lack of use cases. So that would be one part where I would be interested to hear more from some of the people who voted here. Mm-hmm. And adequate people doesn't surprise me. That is true, that there are well, on one side, there are a lot of people, I think, who are able to build products, but often there is a view about, I think I will elaborate that part actually a bit later on, maybe during the discussion that we'll have with Eva. I would love to elaborate that lot of adequate people and the money part. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised with the lack of data also, that there is not many people think that's a lack of data, which is good.
Yeah, so maybe really just to make things simpler, so you don't need to raise your hand. I just unmuted most of you. Some of you are self-muted. If you do not wish to contribute, you can keep yourself still self-muted on your side, but most of you are right now unmuted. So is there anyone who picked lack of use cases and would like to contribute regarding of what Rudra just shared with you? Any volunteer from the audience? I can see that, for example, we have Christoph from BNP Paribas. I see that you're still muted. Sorry, unmuted. Christoph, can you hear us? Hello, we cannot hear you. Okay, probably, Christoph, there's a problem with your mic because I see that you're speaking, but we cannot hear you. So anyone else, guys, don't be shy. We are more than happy to hear from you and your thoughts. Maybe let's try with one more. I see Mauro from Intesa San Paolo. Can you hear us, Mauro?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can speak just a bit louder because we cannot hear you that much. So if you can share with us your input, so what did you pick, and maybe explain your choice, we are more than happy to hear from you.
Actually, as far as I understood, in Intesa, there is a lot of effort put into this actually, and in terms of hardness, we've been facing there is a lot of effort into hiring people with background able to actually give their contribution on this. From a viewpoint, we don't have any lack of money. There is a lot of efforts into these new actually streams. Of course, traditional banks have structures not always in line with these new competencies. So these new actually departments and divisions have to be built from scratch in most of cases, and actually it's what we've been doing over the last few years. That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
And what is the challenge that you are facing, if I could ask, because I was not clear in that?
No, well, not particularly hardness. I think it's just it's our new processes that take time actually. Not particular. I have no in mind any particular. We have data. We have I think money. We have everything. It takes time actually.
Okay, cool.
Rudra, any thought here, or would you like to add something? Actually, we already have one more question from the audience. So let me know if you want to add something to Marco's feedback.
Oh no, I don't have anything. I think what I understand from what he said, that they are in the process. They have everything and the motivation also. So I hope they are able to apply this to improve creating value for for the end users. So I have nothing else to add to that. What he said.
Perfect. So there's one more question from Rui, who is representing Banco BPI from Portugal. He would like to get a little more information on how to choose next product or maybe new product to offer to customers. Do you have any feedback here, Rudradep?
I think that's quite a big or broad question to answer. I mean, if I have to. So I will try to focus at places where there are inefficiencies or there are people are not happy with certain services. So if I have to pick where should I go and put my time in building a product, I would say, what is the biggest pain point that my customers or my users are facing? Or what are the top 3 biggest problems that are facing? And often, and many organizations, including in banks, they for when they go into building machine learning products, they focus on the data part. So I've heard this many times that when someone says, oh, we have this data, what can I do with the data? And I said, that's actually a wrong question to ask. The question that one should ask is, what is the problem that my users or my customers are facing? That's the first question you ask. Then you see whether the process that is broken or you think that could be improved. Now see whether machines can somehow, with the data that is you might have or may have to collect the data, you can improve that process, not by 1 time or not by 1.5 times, but like 5 times more or 10 times more. Can you improve the process that is existing, that is a pain point? You can improve by 5 times more. I'll give you one example. Just I don't know if it's something you could relate to, but I was in Kuwait and in a bank, ABK Bank. So they said their biggest challenge was queues in their retail stores, and that was their biggest problem. And potentially machines can, or machine learning and AI can help people to help them to reduce the large amount of queues in the retail retail bank outlets, and that's where you should look at that. Where is your customers' biggest pain points?
Rudradep, maybe I would have one question connecting to the poll question and also to the other question. What is your opinion, or what are your recommendations how to start an AI project in a bank or an insurance or other financial institution?
So the how to start is there are the first thing is you have to identify a use case, right? So the first and to do that is fine. Take one of the problems that you guys think or in your department or in your bank is a big problem. Pick that's the first thing, and then see that intuitively. And I wrote extensively about that in the book I wrote it. But just to give you a brief idea, intuitively think that can you improve that process or that is out there already through using data, any data that you may or may not have. Can you improve the process somehow? So this doesn't require you to have a data scientist, to be honest. Once you reach to that stage where you say, okay, this is a use case and this is the kind of data that we can potentially use to improve our processes, then you perhaps either in-house or external, doesn't matter, get a small team, as a very small team, 2 to 3 people perhaps, or even doesn't require that, get a small team, start lean, and build that product together with maybe some of the stakeholders that are in part of the process, and do something in a very short time, 3 to 6 months. You can end up building something as a proof and show that, okay, this is working or this is not working. And that's the way to start. I always say start small and start lean. Don't go and build a big product, because that's not the way to do, at least to perhaps that would be not my recommendation of doing something. That's what I would perhaps go ahead with. And the first step, actually, I did a workshop with Efma in Barcelona, where we spent like half of the day with few bankers from around, I think, remember 8 to 10 countries from different parts of the world, and we ended up creating at least 5 to, like, we broke down into a few groups, and there were like people coming up with a lot of use cases. I mean, where they could find out that, okay, this is a thing that they could improve in their sector. So I think finding those use cases are relatively easy if you do this in a structured way, the structure that I kind of said. And once you have done that, then you might want to have, let's say, a machine learning person or a small team, 2 to 3 people, to look into those problems and see how could you solve those problems. So that would be my way of doing this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks a lot. In the meantime, we got a comment from Christoph from BNP Paribas Fortis. He had some troubles with the microphone. So just to give you his feedback, Rudradep. So he's saying that they're only at the start of putting AI in place. And the major barrier to overcome and to get up to speed is finding and recruiting the right profiles. With regard to defining use cases, this is a trial and error process. And as with robotics, they see that people learn from previous already submitted cases and then come up with new idea and possible cases on their site.
If you have anything else to add, let me know.
Yeah, so I think here it's an interesting point that if I understand what you're talking about, is people, right? Lack of people. And so the way I agree with you, and what I'm doing, and I wrote in a few articles about it, is what I have seen that, and I don't know how much it will be applied in banking sector, but what I have seen that what you could do is you could create there's a group of young people who mostly less is not students, but who are junior people who have done some courses online and done some things, bring them together as an intern, and I've worked with like 30 to 40 students I brought from in India. I've worked with them, I've never met them and mentored them properly, and they end up creating machine learning models because a lot of these models are already available. All that you need to do is to train them with certain data points that you have, and then try different models and see what results you get. And you don't necessarily need someone to have a PhD or years and years of experience in machine learning. In fact, someone with a 6 months to a year experience in doing some online courses, Kaggle competition, under a mentor, could really well build models quite well. So I think, and there is lots and lots of such people who have that kind of experience of 6 months to a year of machine learning, who under a proper some guidance from a mentor could end up working really well in building models. So the example I gave you with the solar, we ended up creating very interesting machine learning models, identifying rooftops, done by students who hardly have any more than 6 months of experience in building such models. So I think there are ways, smart or innovative ways to tackle the problem of lack of resources. I am working on one of these things, and I can see that there's a huge way that this thing could be potentially solve a problem of the lack of people in this field.
Great, thank you very much. One more question from the audience. Do you believe we can reach a point when we can predict if a concrete customer is going to buy a specific product? If you think that we will reach that point, when you think that we will be there, Rudradep?
I don't, to be honest, I think there is whether one concrete person will buy something or not, there is a privacy issue to that. So I'm not sure whether it's a direction that one should go into. But you might be able to quite accurately predict that if someone is in this group of people, so let's say within certain age and certain income group, that this is what they are going to buy in the next, say, months or something, given a certain environment or the weather condition or whatever is that. So that you can quite well do it. Whether you want to actually do a person X will do this is something I would perhaps not go into, because that's may go into too much into the privacy thing. But you can do as a group. I think you can fairly well do that. Even now, if you have that data, and I think you guys, a lot of banks have that kind of data.
Wonderful, Rudra. Many thanks for that. So for now, no more questions from the audience. And I see that we are slowly reaching the limit of today's webinar. So maybe I will just pass the word once again to Eva. She has some information to you regarding Efma and AI.
Yes, once again, thank you very much for joining today. I hope you have taken some new information from this session. As I said in the beginning, we are about to create a new AI community for Efma members. You will be updated shortly as soon as we define all what will be included within the package. Not only webinars, it will be also part of Efma councils and new academic courses with the French school. We will closely collaborate in future with Rudradep So there are a lot of new initiatives, and now we would like to ask you what are your preferences, how you would like to be updated from our side, because we know there are some emails sent from Efma on a regular basis. We don't want you to ignore it, so if you are interested, let us know if you prefer to be contacted on LinkedIn, or if you prefer maybe a dedicated WhatsApp group only for AI community members, where we would inform you only shortly, hey, there's a new report published with Efma and Microsoft that we are about to publish in February. Also, I can inform you about all recent studies, articles, reports we published in 2018 or even before. So if you have also any other questions regarding AI, you can anytime get back to me and we will be happy to help.
Yeah, so I see that some of you have already voted. Let's wait a few more seconds for the rest, and then probably it will be up on Eva's follow-up to see if we're going to really share with you some information by LinkedIn, WhatsApp, or email.
We are going to send you also a follow-up email after this session. You will get the presentation from Rudradep from today's session, and we will update you about future initiatives within that email as well.
Yeah. So I think that we reached a couple of responses, Eva. So maybe just to give you a picture, this is the status, and then it will be up to you to follow up.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you very much for your interest to join us today and for your time. If any questions will come up afterwards, please feel free to send it to us and we'll be happy to respond, or Rudradep will follow up with you right after. As said earlier, we'll send you a follow-up email with video, with the presentation slides, and also with an overview of AI initiatives of Efma. And hopefully see you soon at the upcoming Efma event or Efma webinars. We'll be more than happy to welcome you again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rudradep, for a very nice presentation, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.